So biotechnology is when we are using the existing natural resources of the environment into industrial application. Okay, let's see the definition. Biotechnology. So biotech patents are the first type of emerging area of law that we are going to begin with, which is biotech patents. Biotechnology is the exploitation of biological processes for industrial and other purposes. So exploiting naturally occurring biological processes for industrial purpose is called biotechnology, especially the genetic manipulation of microorganisms for the production of antibiotics, hormones, etc. See, there are a lot of scientists who, for research purpose or for like some industrial purpose, commercial purpose, they manipulate the genes of various organisms and they try to create new organisms out of them. See now, say for example, for the COVID vaccine, also there is a lot of research going on and they are trying to create antibodies. So for that, so they are trying to create something which fights the virus, right? So creating all this requires a lot of genetic manipulations, like changing the sequences of genes and combining more than two genes together and creating vaccines. So there is a TV show called The Last Ship. I'm not sure if you guys have watched it. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a very good show. So there basically also a pandemic had struck the whole world and a vaccine is being created on the ship. Like there is a ship on which only some like 20 or 25 people are left who are free from the pandemic, who are like safe from the pandemic. And there is a scientist on the ship who is trying to create a vaccine. So she creates a small lab on the ship and she manipulates different genes to reach a vaccine that can fight that particular virus. So biotechnology is kind of that is that kind of a process on which people can get patents. Now, why the IPR waiver talks are being going on for the vaccine is because biotech patents exist in the world. Now, these are those patents that are granted on scientific advancements. So, if anybody puts their intellect, mind, creativity into like developing a scientific technology, they can get it patented. For example, the orange juice that we drink is a result of a very complicated biotech patent victory. Back in 1873, microbiologist Louis Pasteur patented a new yeast making method at the French Patent Office. Today, we know this process as pasteurization. So, pasteurization is a microbiological process that was patented by this fellow called Louis Pasteur in 1873. And today, pasteurization is so common. Like we have pasteurized milk, we have pasteurized juices, we have a lot of pasteurized products. This was something invented by a person in 1873 who got it patented at that time. Now it is in public domain, so everybody can use the process. Had this still been patented, then it would not have been, open for use for everyone. Today, we know this process as pasteurization, and most commercial orange juice companies use this patented biotechnology method to bring orange juice to a breakfast table. Okay, so pasteurization is an example of a biotech patent. Many modern luxuries that are often taken for granted, like drinks, food, medicines, and surgical procedures, among others, stem from advances in biotechnology that might not have been available for consumers without patents. A few examples of patented products and procedures that save countless human lives are insulin, blood transfusions, anti cancer drugs, autoimmune drugs, and pasteurization. See, blood transfusion is a very complicated process that happens in surgeries and everything. So, if somebody is, for example, suffering from blood cancer, so blood transfusion surgeries take place. So, these surgeries are obviously very thoughtful and a lot of scientific and technical knowledge and expertise goes behind it. But the patent aspect comes into play is the method or the procedure which is used to conduct this blood transfusion. It might be patented. It is patented actually. Creating insulin, which is given to diabetic patients, that also includes biotech patents. So everything which is there in our day-to-day lives. So a lot of families have people who have diabetes and they take insulin injections every day. Blood transfusion surgeries happen very commonly in our country, like everywhere. Cancer is a very common like ailment to people. So anti-cancer drugs. So everything that is mentioned here, or if not something this serious, then something as very regular as a juice, orange juice. So all these things have a lot of biotech patents behind them, which enable these products to be made in the first place. So biotech patents, I hope biotech patents is clear. Biological processes being used for commercial or industrial purpose is basically the gist. Despite the critical role that biotech plays in saving, improving, and extending human life, there is an extremely complicated process behind the work of patenting these scientific advancements. Now, what are the issues that are faced while we try to get a biotech patent? See, there was this attorney of an IP firm called J.D. Hovener who said that an examiner is going to try to reject a biotech application by saying that the scientist's invention is merely a creation of nature. See, there is a very thin line between something that is naturally existing in biotech patents and something which a person is creating in a biotech patent. Because in biotech patents, we are basically combining or manipulating already naturally existing material that we have in the environment. We are going to just manipulate it, right? So there is going to be a very thin line which decides whether we are inventing or whether we are or just working with the existing material. To decide whether we have done something inventive is a very difficult task. That is why this CEO of this IP firm said that the examiner, who's like the technical expert who's going to decide whether the biotech patent should be granted, he will always try to reject the patent application, claiming that this is a natural process. There is no um, there is no like human intervention. This is only a creation of nature. It was also said they will argue that a scientist made an obvious variant of what organically occurs in nature. So obvious, the word obvious where it comes, that means your patent is not inventive, so it gets rejected. So they will argue that the scientist has made an obvious variant of an organically occurring in nature, of something which organically occurs in nature, which is ineligible for a patent. This is especially a problem when it comes to genetically modified organisms, tissues, and cells. See, GMOs is the abbreviation that we use for genetically modified organisms. If you've ever read an article or some news piece on this, GMOs, so patenting of GMOs is a very controversial topic in the world these days. Like even before the pandemic struck, so GMO patenting is in fact a very good topic if you want to write a research paper or you want to make your dissertation on it. Patenting of GMOs, it's a very interesting and upcoming topic, and it's very less researched. So if you want to come decide on a topic which is not very common and which is does not have a lot of literature on it, so you can write your own literature. So this person, the CEO, also said that when we talk about GMOs or tissues and cells, here it is very easy to say that these are naturally occurring material and there is nothing man-made in it. There is nothing inventive in it, so patent gets rejected very easily. This is an issue which people face when they are trying to get a biotech patent. In terms of novelty also, the main challenge is demonstrating that the biotech product or the process being patented is new rather than merely a natural one. So novelty proof karna is very important. How do you prove that I have manipulated two genes, but these I have invented? You can't invent a gene as such from scratch, right? You need some material. So it is very difficult to prove that there has been an inventive concept, an invention on my part. It is not naturally occurring material that I have just combined. So if you just combine a separate material and you try to get a patent, you will not be given a patent on it. You have to invent something. So here, novelty and proving that you have invented something is very difficult because we are playing in the nature in biotech patents. So this is an issue which people face while getting a patent. I hope this is clear. Biotech patents are clear. If there's any doubt, please ask me. While any technological invention can feasibly be eligible for a patent, the patentability of biological materials is often a source of controversy. Some argue See, some people also argue that biotech patents should not be given at all because it's morally incorrect. Like you can't, disturb the order of nature. You can't disturb already existing microorganisms or already existing natural biological processes just for commercial purpose. So some people also, they oppose patenting of biotech on the grounds of morality. Some argue that biological materials are mere discoveries and therefore not patentable. Others argue that certain biological materials are man-made inventions and are therefore patentable. So there are two sides. Some say it is natural, some say it's man-made. Now this will totally depend on the case at hand. It is a totally subjective matter and it will change from person to person, case to case. So there is no uniform parameter that is set to decide whether a biotech patent is natural or not. Another source of complexity regarding biotech inventions results from the fact that biological material is capable of reproducing itself, meaning that a biological material may be patented as it is one moment but might change morph the next moment. This brings us to the question of whether the patent covers the shift or stops at the original state. So, did you understand? I mean, one gene or one biological material has the capacity naturally that it can reproduce or change its form. Like without human intervention, it can just change its form. Now, if we get a patent of suppose a microorganism when it is at a birth stage, and we know that after a few years it is going to adapt itself to a second stage, but we get the first stage patented. Now, the patent protection is for 20 years. Now, after the microorganism changes its state, does the patent cover also the change state, or will it only be restricted to the original state which we got patented? So this is another source of problem on which there is no rule or no law. Is everybody clear with biotechnology patents? Do you want to ask anything, or do you want to say anything, add on something to the discussion? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Now, genetic patents. So I think everybody knows genes. We have genes in our body, in our DNA. So that is what a genetic patent is, when you can get a gene patented. A genetic patent is one granted to a specific sequence of a DNA given by the government to a particular individual, organization, or corporation who has first identified that gene. Once granted a gene patent, the holder of the patent dictates how the gene can be used in both commercial settings, such as clinical genetic testing, and in non-commercial settings like research, for 20 years from the date of the patent, because 20 years is the patent protection time period. Gene patents have often resulted in companies having sole ownership of genetic testing for patented genes. So once a person becomes the owner or the patent holder of a gene, that person or company, firm, whatever that entity is, will get to decide how the gene is used in a commercial setting, like for testing in the labs or clinical testings, etc. And in non-commercial settings, like who can use it for research purpose, who can use it for educational purpose. So non-commercial is education, research kind of purposes, and commercial is something like clinical testings. So the owner, patent holder, decides what the gene can be put to use in. Now there is a case called Association for Molecular Pathology versus Maria Genetics Incorporation. This is a US case. In this case, the Supreme Court of US ruled that human genes cannot be patented in the US because DNA is a product of nature. So they clearly said that genes are not patentable because they are natural. The court decided that because nothing new is created when discovering a gene, there is no intellectual property to protect. So patents cannot be granted. So they gave a straightaway answer that since we think it's very natural, there is no novelty, there is no invention, so we are not going to grant patents to gene. Prior to this ruling, more than 4,300 human genes were patented. The Supreme Court's decision invalidated those gene patents, making the genes accessible for research and commercial genetic testing. So this case basically had a retrospective effect, that even the patents that were granted before the ruling were all invalidated. It was not like they were given permission to continue, they were also invalidated. The Supreme Court's ruling did allow that DNA manipulated in a lab is eligible to be patented because DNA sequences altered by humans are not found in nature. So naturally occurring or naturally just a newly discovered gene cannot be patented, even if nobody else has ever discovered it or seen it, even if it's novel. But since it is discovered, we will not be granted we will not be granting patents. However, if you manipulate the DNA in a lab, like there is human intervention which is not naturally occurring, then we can think of granting patents. Now, under the Indian Patents Act, what is the situation? Now, Section 3, I told you guys yesterday, is our gateway of deciding whether a invention is patentable in India. So, the Section 3 has a lot of subsections, like A to K, I think, are there. So, we will be separately discussing all of them. Now, one which is relevant here is 3C, which basically says that naturally occurring biological processes are not patentable. Okay, so they are not inventions. Section 3C of the Indian Patent Act prohibits patenting a discovery of a living or non-living thing found in nature. DNA patenting remains a matter of conjecture. Conjecture matlab confusion, you can say, or something which is not clear, ambiguous. Critics of genetic patent rely on Section 3I to claim that since plants and animals cannot be patented, so 3I states that natural plants and animals are not patentable. Similar treatment should be accorded to genes. Critics of patenting, meaning people who don't want genes to be patented, who want genes to remain in public domain, open for research and exploitation, they say that since we don't accord protection to plants and animals, we should also not accord patent protection to genes because they are also living beings and they are also naturally occurring. However, this section applies only to plants and animals as a whole, so the patentability of a gene which is a part of the plant or animal still remains contentious. So 3I, it states that plants and animals as a whole, plants and animals as a whole cannot be patented, but genes form part of the plant and animal. Genes basically create the plant and animal. So are genes patentable? This is still a question. There are no law on the same. The Indian stance on this changed in 2005 when the draft manual of patent practice and procedure was released. I hope I'm being clear and I'm not going too fast. Please be a little interactive. Like, please tell me if I'm going fast or just like add on to some discussion. This is not like bookish knowledge. This is something very general. So please let me know. Just stop me, okay, if you don't like something or the speed or something.
Ma'am?
Yeah. Tell me.
Ma'am, can I ask you one thing? I have a
Yeah, ask me. Tell
I
me.
guess that Thursday there is a session of law of patents because I was not informed in any of the group that today is your class.
Because
And
today
just
was a last minute change. I think you had a class with Urvi ma'am and she was not well. So I was asked to take a class today. It's only for today. This is not a permanent change.
ma'am, but how will be us be informed, ma'am? Nowhere, no one has informed us.
No, I dropped an email to the whole class that on Outlook. I dropped an email in the morning only and I scheduled the meeting accordingly.
Ma'am, actually, we don't use Outlook. We just use Microsoft Teams for the classes, and generally we use our Gmails or whatever accounts they have, the email ID.
So if I have to inform something, so I can write it on Teams in the chat.
Yes, ma'am, and we can connect in
Ma'am,
WhatsApp as
otherwise
well.
you can
Us.
send a text on class groups also as well.
Okay, so can you add me on the class group? Who will add me? Do you have like class representatives or something?
Ma'am, we don't have any group for law of patent as of just exclusive for us, like law of patent students. So either you can take anyone's WhatsApp number, you can drop a message to them, and we will inform to everyone, or else we can create a group for law of patent.
I think it's better if I get one number so that I can be in touch with that person and that person can convey all the messages. So anybody
Yes,
who
ma'am.
comes every day, who will be regular, please give me your number with name.
Yes, ma'am.
Disha?
I'll drop.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Ma'am, you can take my number.
Disha? Is your name Disha?
Ma'am, Disha is regular to the
Yes,
class. She'll be like,
Okay. Give me Disha's number, please.
Ma'am, it is in chat box.
Okay. I'll save it and then all the communications I'll make on WhatsApp and then Disha can tell everyone.
Sure, ma'am.
Now, in 2005, when the draft manual of the patent practice and procedure came into enforcement, so this changed the Indian stance a little. They allowed the recombinant DNA and plasmids to be patented as long as they meet the criteria of novelty owing to substantial human intervention. So basically, it must be novel and there must be substantial human intervention. It should not be naturally occurring. However, for undisclosed reasons, this annexure was missing from the 2008 draft. So 2005 mein they included it, 2008 mein they removed it, and the reasons were not disclosed. At present, the Intellectual Property India's Manual of Patent Practice and Procedure, which was released in March 2011, states in its guidelines on the unity of invention that independent claims of different categories may relate to a single inventive concept. With regard to genetically modified gene or amino acid sequences, claims can cover a gene or amino acid sequence, a method of expressing the sequence. See, all this is very technical and scientific. We are not science students and we will not be able to understand, everything here. We just have to try to understand the patent point of view, like where there is novelty, where there is substantial human intervention, where there is an inventive concept, where there is where it is not like totally naturally occurring, it only then it will be granted a patent. So all these like technical terms and technical concepts you need not focus on that much. Just focus on the patent criteria and when a gene can be patented and when it cannot be patented. I will not be even asking all this in the exams because this is not relevant for you. You are like law students. You need to know the legal aspects. The manual further established that the guidelines only apply if the genetically modified gene is novel, involves an inventive step, and has industrial application. So basically, all the three patent steps, the three-step test that we did in the first class, that is that the Indian law applies even for genetically modified genes. The next category of patent is a plant patent. So basically, a variety of plant, a seed that I develop. Now, when I was when you must have studied IPR in your semester, fifth semester, you must have like read the Plant Variety and Farmers' Rights Act. So in India, we don't grant patents to plants. In India, we grant protection to plants under the Plant Varieties Act. However, countries like US, they include plant protection under the patent. That's why plant patent is a topic. And TRIPS also allows, do you guys know what TRIPS is? Hello? Are you guys acquainted with TRIPS?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So TRIPS says that countries can either have a separate legislation to protect plants or they can include them under the patent only. So US chose patenting and we chose Plant Variety Act. A plant patent is an intellectual property right that protects a new and unique plant's key characteristics from being copied, sold, or used by others. A plant patent can help an inventor secure higher profits during the patent protection period by preventing competitors from using the plant. Just like any other IP, we are protecting plants here. How a plant patent works? A patentable plant can be natural, bred, or somatic, created from non-reproductive cells of the plant. Like any invention, a plant must be non-obvious to qualify for patentability, just like any other invention. Now the US perspective, since plant patents are present in US, so I've included the US perspective here because India does not have plant patents. A plant patent is granted by the US government to an inventor or his heirs or assignees, whatever the case may be, who has invented or discovered and asexually reproduced a distinct and new variety of plant, other than a tuber propagated plant or a plant found in an uncultivated state. See, it should not be discovered. I'm again emphasizing on the fact that patents are not granted to discoveries. They are granted to inventions. So a plant which is found in an uncultivated state will be a discovery. It will not be an invention. So you have to asexually reproduce or you have to invent a new variety of plant, only then you will get a patent. The grant, which lasts for 20 years from the date of filing the application, protects the patent owner's right to exclude others from asexually producing the plant and from using, offering for sale, or selling the plant so reproduced or any of its parts throughout the US, or from importing the plant so reproduced. So basically, you can like restrict others from intruding in your rights. You have the plant patent, you have the protection, you can sell it, only you can authorize anybody to sell it. If anybody sells or offers for sale or tries to reproduce that plant that you have invented without your permission, you can sue them. In India, there is a sui generis system for plant protection. There is a separate law, the Plant Variety Protection and Farmers' Rights Act 2001, as we call it. So when I say there is a sui generis system, it means there is a separate law. There is a separate legislation for that particular IP. When we say it is a accommodative inclusive law, we mean like plant variety included in patent in US. So India has a sui generis system. In India, the Plant Variety Protection and Farmers' Rights Act 2001 is a sui generis system that aims to provide for the establishment of an effective system for protection of plant varieties and the rights of plant breeders and farmers. Now, India is a farmer-based country. Okay, so like US and other big economies, they are breeder-based countries. They are more commercial in their seeds and grains industry. But we are a farmer-based country. All our food, all our grains, everything comes from the farmers. So be it in the North India like Punjab, Haryana, and other states which cultivate, or be it in states like Darjeeling, or be it places in the south where rice is cultivated and all. So India is all a farmer-based country, and farmers are the foundation of India. A certificate of registration for a variety issued under this act confers an exclusive right on the breeder or his successor, his agent or licensee, to produce, sell, market, distribute, import, export the variety. So these are the rights that a person who has a protected plant variety gets. Okay. Application for registration of plant varieties can be made in the Office of Registrar, New Delhi. So the registrar sits in New Delhi. Is the plant patents clear? Did you guys understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Only one person is responding. Where are the others? How many people
Yes.
are there in the class?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Now, nanotechnology patent. Nanotechnology, as the word suggests, nano means something which is very small. So technology which is in size is very, very small is basically nanotech patents. So people who invent small technologies can get patents under a separate categories called nanotech patents. Among the emerging technologies, nanotechnology is one of the most prominent examples, and it raises high expectations in a wide range of areas affecting daily life. Nanotechnology is a science which operates at an extremely small scale, as it uses the size of a so-called nanoscale, which is approximately between 1 and 100 nanometers, or 1 to 1 billionth of a meter. So you can imagine what a small scale this nanotech covers, like 100 billionth of a meter. For example, in the area of health, achievements such as diagnostic tools penetrating cells or therapeutic micro tools directly treating ill cells from the inside can be included. So basically, there is a very small tool which is used to treat the cell inside the body. So you can imagine if the cell is so small, how small that tool will be. That is a nanotechnology. That is an example of a nanotechnology. So we are here talking about nanotech patents. When you can get a patent on such small technology. Patenting criteria for a nanotech invention is first, it must be novel. Novelty is there for every invention that we talk about in any country. So this is something which is uniform. Novelty. It must be non-obvious. Obviousness also we have discussed. It should not be obvious to a person skilled in the art. That means a person skilled in the art here meaning person who is technically having all the knowledge of the nanotechnology. It should have industrial application. It should be something which is able to be applied in the industry or commercially viable. It should not be something which is just kept at home or has no use. So this is the same criteria that we follow everywhere else. In India, nanotechnology is the engineering of matter at the scale of atoms and molecules, where size is measured in billionth of a meter. Nanotechnology is a very vast field which includes a range of technologies at the nanoscale, such as pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, genomics, neuroscience, robotics, and information technologies, etc. Is there any science student here who took science in 11th, 12th? Do we have a science student? Okay, we don't. In India, it holds importance particularly in the nanobiotech and nanomedicine segment. The commencement of nanotechnology in India has hosted a series of questions and challenges in terms of intellectual property protection. Therefore, it is of immense importance to explore crucially whether the Indian patent system presents suitable atmosphere for patent protection in India. So the stance is not very clear as of now. But issues are. So section 3, as I've mentioned multiple times in the class, which talks about what are not inventions. So section 3b says that if an invention is against public morality and public order, it will not be granted patent. Section 3d says that if the invention is a new form of an existing known substance, it will not be given protection. So then if you're trying to get an invention patented, it should have enhanced efficacy. If it's originating from an existing invention, it should not be a new discovery or a new form of a non existing discovery. Am I clear? Are you guys able to understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So issues in nanotech patents occurs under these two subsections. So 3b, which talks about morality, and 3d, which talks about novelty. So let's see why it is an issue under 3b. Nanotech invention has showed more environmental damage due to high permeation ability of the nanoparticles to get absorbed into the bodies of humans, which result in nanotoxicity. So see, when it is more than being useful, it is harming the environment, harming humans, then it becomes against public order. So it comes under 3b. That is what this issue claims. Section 3b of the Indian Patent Act forms a barrier to nanobiotechnology based patenting due to assumptions about nanotoxicity caused by the use of nanoparticles. So there was a case called Plant Genetic Systems, whatever, I don't know how to pronounce this scientific word. It involved an invention where genetic engineering was applied to plants to render them herbicide resistant. It was held that the unchecked use of technology to alter natural traits which caused injustice to other living organisms and adversely affected the environment was not patentable. They were basically trying to alter a naturally existing mechanism of a plant. Now, when you try to go against the order of nature, or when you try to do something with human intervention that disturbs the natural order of something, you are causing injustice to that particular living organism. Plants are also living organisms. You cannot just go and disturb their order by inventing some new nanotechnology. Here, the nanotech patents are refused on the grounds of public order and morality under 3b. When we come to 3d, according to Section 3D of the Act, there is vagueness in the particle size being included in non-patentable subject matter. In case of nanobiotechnology, the newness of technology is significantly derived from the reduction in size. See, what this means is when we talk about nanotechnology, we basically our inventive part in the whole concept of nanotechnology is the fact that we reduce the size drastically so that we can serve our purpose. So if I want to create a tool that goes into a human body which treats the cell inside and the tool can come out, I need to have a very small tool. To create such a small tool, I need to be inventive and novel in my idea. That is where the newness is derived from the reduction on size. So my novelty is directly related to the fact that I'm reducing the size of the nanotechnology. Under the Indian patent regime, nanotech invention would remain non-patentable unless the particle size differed in its properties or showed enhanced efficacy. Enhanced efficacy is the gist of 3D. So 3D is the most important subsection of section 3. We will go through 3D and it's like there are hundreds of case laws on 3D. We will be doing only the landmarks. But here we haven't done 3D, so I don't know how to go into the details. Or we'll do one thing, when we do 3D now, I'll bring this nanotech aspect there and then I'll make you guys explain, make you guys understand, because it's not possible right now. Then we have lastly software patents. Like when I began the lecture, I explained to you guys what a software is and how software is copyrighted. We'll just read through the slides. Jaldi se. A software patent is a property right that protects computer programs or any performance of a computer from computer programs. Like any other invention, the software must meet certain criteria. There is industrial or commercial way to use the invention, basically capable of industrial application is here. That means that the software is used with a machine. This ensures that you are not trying to patent a pure business method, such as a process that See, business methods are also excluded under Section 3 of Patent Act. So I'm just like mentioning it here because this line talks about this. So this basically means that for a software to be patented, there must be an industrial application of it and it must be attached to a machine. Like it is attached to a hardware, like I told in the beginning. The invention, second point, the invention is new, unique, and non-obvious to anyone with average skills in the industry. Third, the patent application is filled out in detail. So I had explained in the first class that while filing for a patent application, the applicant has to in detail disclose the patent to the patent office. So they have to give a full-fledged disclosure of the how the invention is to be worked, how the invention was made, what are the uses, advantages, disadvantages of the invention. So there is a full disclosure. If there is not enough disclosure, the patent office can even reject your application. Why this disclosure is made is so that after the 20-year of protection is over, when the patent falls in the public domain, even the public can use it. Like, so they must have the instructions to use the patent. Otherwise, it will, although on paper the 20 years will end, but if nobody knows how to use the patent only, then the actual owner in practice would remain the patent holder only. So the patent office takes a full disclosure. So the last point here, that's why it says that the patent application is filled out in detail. What is the situation in India? The fast growing software industry and a faster pace of technological advancements have made it essential to protect the IP vested in the software programs and all those machines that use such programs and software. Software are a set of instructions that command the operation of a system and are intangible in nature. Talking of software, copyright and patent are two IP protections that come to mind immediately. Copyright is the most common method of protecting software program, as writing source code and programs is similar to writing any type of literary or artistic work. Our Copyright Act of India clearly states that computer programs are copyrighted and not patented. Okay, so computer programs, when you write a code on paper or like on laptop, whatever, when you write something, you are just, it is just kind of a story or a artistic work that you're writing, right? There is nothing, it is not attached to a hardware yet. So it is copyrightable. When we attach a software to a hardware, it becomes patentable. So please remember this, computer programs per se are only copyrightable. You cannot get computer programs patented. Only when the software gets attached to a hardware, it can be patented. This is the Indian situation and this is a very controversial topic again. सॉफ्टवेयर पेटेंट हो सकते हैं या सॉफ्टवेयर कॉपीराइट हो सकते हैं. So you have to be very careful in understanding the thin line. A software can be patented if it is attached to an invention and that it is a component of such invention. It is essential to show that a hardware is an essential part of the invention along with the software or computer program. Am I clear? Did you guys understand the software difference?
Ma'am, can you please repeat it once again?
Which part? The last part?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I was saying that a software, when we are just writing a computer program, so computer has its own, languages like Java and whatever computer languages are there. So when I'm just writing a computer program, I'm devising something on paper, like I'm writing words, right? So it is just like a literary work, any other literary work. That becomes copyrightable. So that goes under the Copyright Act. When I attach the computer software to a hardware, like I attach it to a laptop, I attach it to a desktop, or I attach it to a big screen, I convert the copyright into patent. So now I can go under the patent to get my protection, IP protection. So as long as it is just a computer program on paper, it comes under the Copyright Act. When it gets attached to a hardware, it goes under the Patent Act. Now is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that's it for the emerging areas of patent law. Tomorrow or I think we have a class on Saturday now. So on Saturday, we'll be doing the difference of patent with other IPRs. So we'll differentiate patents with trademarks, then copyright, then designs, and their interface probably we'll discuss. So we'll see how the class goes. That's it for today. Thank you so much. You can leave now.
Thank you, ma'am.